32 Inning Podcast. Sports analysis.
Interviews.
Entertainment reviews.
And everything in between.
Yo, what's that word? 32 Inning Podcast, episode 93. Now, I'm in a different setting, different vibe. It's just myself back to the old days if you've been a fan for a while. But without further ado, work must be done. Let's get into the podcast. About to knock it out the park today. So, y'all know we start off with a Reddit warm-up to get the show started off. And again, solo pod today. So, the Reddit warm-up today is, what's something that happened in your life to change it to a before and after? And y'all know y'all welcome to comment in the comments below. I want to hear from y'all, especially with it being me by myself today. So, a thing that changed my life from before to after, there are a few things that instantly come to mind, but I would have to say my first son, me and his mother splitting. So, I was just working, regular job, we had our own apartment and stuff like that, had cars and stuff like that, had my son, and I was very young at this time. I can't remember the age, probably around, let's just for shits and giggles, let's say like 20. And, things occurred on both ends that shouldn't have occurred, but, I'll own up to my side of it, did things I wasn't supposed to do as a father, well, as a partner, I should say, and we ended up splitting. Now, this was like 2 years after high school, so I was every day just playing basketball and smoking, getting high, just living life, had, my friends and stuff like that. And I guess when that happened, one day I came home from work and I was just like, yo, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I need to be building my future, not just for my son, but for myself. Like, I really need to tighten up. So, I think a switch just happened. Like, I heard the echoes in the house. It was just traumatizing and depressing. So, I said, I'm going to college. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And I think since then, I've continued to go to college. I've earned a couple of degrees. I've situated some things where I'm writing my first couple books, doing a podcast with you guys, building, a collective fan base, done some other things, had more children, and, enjoyed time with my family. So y'all get in the comments, let me know what's something that changed your life to before and after. It can be good, bad, whatever. It's your story. But I really do want to hear from you guys on this topic. I appreciate y'all listening. Now, first topic that we're going to get into tonight is, let's go with my top 5 favorite transfer portal pickups. And we'll talk a little bit about the pickups and what they mean to each team. Now, first, forgive me if I butcher some of these names, but Dylan Thieneman, who went from Purdue to Oregon, in my opinion, a top safety in the portal, was a freshman All-American, had over 100 tackles as a freshman, I believe 6 interceptions, dominant player for Purdue. Obviously, they fired their coach this season. He ended up transferring to Oregon to the Ducks. The Ducks picked up a lot of good players in the transfer portal, and of course, we know they're one of the top recruiting operations in the country. But in general, love him as an individual talent. Think he's going to be a star of their defense coming up here. He was a star at Purdue, already playing in the Big Ten, so he knows the landscape. But he's also playing around more talented teammates, so that should free him up to do more things, maybe get back to upping those turnovers as he comes into this year. And I expect him to, go to the NFL draft after this year. My number 2 is Jaden Ott, running back, went from Cal to Oklahoma. Oklahoma also picked up John Mateer and the Washington State offensive coordinator. So I think their offense, which needed to elevate this year, is ultimately going to elevate. We'll have to see how that works out in SEC play. But I love to pick up a Jaden Ott. I think he was the top running back in the portal, in my opinion. Right there neck and neck with Michael Hughes, who ended up going to Oregon. But getting to see Jaden Ott when he played against Florida State, y'all know I'm a diehard Noel fan. But I think he's one of the top backs in the country. I was very surprised he didn't go to the NFL this year. But it was a loaded running back class with Ashton Genty, Amarion Hampton, a couple of players at the top of that draft, and quality depth throughout. So this year, I think he's going to come in with the opportunity to be the first running back off the board in next year's NFL draft. Number 3, I had Thomas Castellanos. And I know a lot of people probably disagree with this, but I am a Noel fan. So it's one of my top 5 portal pickups for my team. Thomas Castellanos, I think he had a better year 2 years ago. When he was playing, I forget his name, but he's not a DC for the Packers. Explosive legs. Decent arm. Don't think he's the most accurate quarterback. Obviously, vertically challenged, but that's okay. Short Kings, we rocking together. But Gus Malzahn is a new OC in Tallahassee. Of course, my Noles are coming off a disastrous year, 2-10. Incredibly sorry, trash, as any negative descriptor you want to put on it. It was a train wreck and a horror show. And of course, Mike Norvell, head coach, ended up firing the DC and OC. Gus Malzahn, he known for running the ball. He known for running his quarterbacks, and that's Thomas Castellanos' best attribute, in my opinion, is his legs. So we're going to see a lot of QB run. Got to pray he stay healthy this year. Picked up Deuce Robinson, Squirrel White in the portal for Florida State. Picked up Gavin Sechuk, running back transfer from Oklahoma. So we should, in 4 new offensive linemen in the portal as well for Florida State. So we should see a lot of change to literally the worst power 4 rushing offense in the country last year at just over 1,000 yards total. The whole operation, just over 1,000 yards, literally the worst in the country. And I'm excited to see what TC does in his Florida State offense going back with Gus Malzahn. Number 4, I had Will Height. I hope I'm saying his name right. Purdue transferring to Clemson. Was great here as a sophomore. Had over 50 tackles. Known for pressuring the quarterback. And we know that Clemson doesn't dip into the portal often, if at all. So we know that he must have really saw something in this player. Obviously, a great bookend to a star pass rusher in T.J. Parker and Peter Woods on the interior there. Clemson should have the inside track to win the ACC, up there with some other teams like Miami. And, I would say those two are like the leading front runners right now. Right now, I would go with Clemson just because Klubnik and they got a bunch of seniors returning, and they won the ACC last year. So I think they're going to be even better this year. But I think Will Height is going to be a great bookend on that defensive line down there in Clemson. Number 5, I have Xavier Chaplin. Left tackle, 6'7", 325 pounds. I think he has early round draft potential. Ended up transferring for Virginia Tech to Auburn. Auburn picked up Jackson Arnold, Eric Singleton, a couple players that could have made this list. And I think they're going to be great contributors for that Auburn program. But ultimately, he was brought in to protect Jackson Arnold, that quarterback. And that's what I think he's going to do. I think he'll go in the top 2 rounds. Next NFL draft. Was a great prospect. Only allowed 3 total sacks and 301 passing attempts at Virginia Tech. And I expect a lot out of him. I'm sure that Auburn fan base expects a lot out of him this year. Y'all get in the comments. Let me know who y'all liked in the transfer portal, who y'all top 5 pickups was, what y'all think about my 5, and we move on from there. Moving on from there, and let's talk about the NBA draft lottery. So I chose just to do the top 3 picks, and we'll focus on those who ended up winning the top 3 picks. Well, the Mavericks won number 1 with only a 1.8% chance, and let's start there. Obviously, whoever picked number 1 this year is going to pick up Cooper Flagg. Everybody knows that. It's a foregone conclusion. National Player of the Year at Duke. In my opinion, pro comp, probably Kevin Garnett, which is awesome. Hall of Fame champion, perennial all-star, and all-NBA player. Great on the defensive end. Was surprised watching this game how much he's developed on the offensive end of the ball. Can handle the ball, can set up his teammates. Not the most explosive athlete, but good enough. I think he'll be a good NBA athlete. And obviously a culture and tone setter. How the effort he puts in on the defensive side, but also on the offensive side and leadership-wise. Remember, he reclassified, so he's potentially, if not the youngest player in this draft class. So Love, obviously, everyone loves what they seen at Duke and Montverde in high school. And I think he's a good fit on the Mavericks if they can trade AD and get some for him. Now, obviously, AD went to Dallas because he didn't want to play center. Obviously, they have Derek Lively, Gafford, who probably going to end up getting traded with the money he's talking about. But I digress. And, of course, Kyrie Irving is coming back from a torn ACL. We know the Mavericks lost Luka, so they're getting a franchise cornerstone to build around, in my opinion, for at least the next 10 years. But if they can get something for AD, because AD doesn't want to play center, I think a great front court to build around would be Derek Lively and Cooper Flagg. So we'll have to see what they're going to do. Obviously, they got Klay Thompson on the wing as well. So it seems like the hole right there is small forward. I understand they got P.J. Washington. In my opinion, he's best as a high-usage six-man coming off the bench. And if they can get a three-player right there, maybe a 3-and-D player to play along with Klay, he's not the same defensively or offensively, but if they can get a talent there for AD, get a haul back, get some draft picks that they didn't get for the Luka trade, and trade them to a win-now situation. Of course, I want to see AD in a win-now situation. I think they make out like bandits in this trade. I think Cooper Flagg can do a lot of what AD does. Obviously, he's not the same caliber of player just yet, but this might be hyperbole, but I don't think he's far off. I love AD as a player. I think he's what the Lakers are missing in this playoffs when the Lakers flamed out early in these playoffs. But ultimately, I think Flagg is a really good prospect. He does a lot of what AD does. Things I think he needs to work on, of course, is range and his defensive rebounding. But I don't think those are weaknesses in his game. I just think those are things that can take him to being one day maybe a top 5 player in the NBA. I think he has that type of ceiling. And, of course, most draft analysts do as well. And I'd just like to say this, too. I don't think the draft is rigged, but we've seen, circumstances where it could lean that way. But Dallas got the pick, and that's all we got to go behind. Who got the number 2 pick? That was the San Antonio Spurs. And they also had the 14th pick. I would just like to say, if I was the Spurs, I would go all in on trying to get Giannis. I think it's going to cost more than the 2nd and 4th pick, just because the player we're talking about, Giannis, is arguably the best player in the NBA. Plays both sides of the basketball, champion, MVP, DPOY. Like I said, arguably the best player in the NBA. But the Spurs already have Wembanyama. If they could put him at center, put Giannis at the 4, De'Aaron Fox, those pick and rolls and all the things they could do, especially with a new coach trying to establish his own culture. Greg Popovich is moving on to the president role, but the new coach coming in, he doesn't have any titles as the head coach or anything like that. That is a lot of personality to manage with those stars, but being under Greg Popovich, I think that coach coming up, he's going to have the tools to be able to do that. But Giannis is already a humble star. Wemby seems like a humble star. Fox, all these guys seem like the humble, non-brash superstars who are trying to get the job done. Health permitting, Wemby coming back. I think they should package that 2nd pick traded for Giannis and the 14th pick and some young players, whether that's Castle, whoever the Spurs want for Giannis, whoever the Bucks want for Giannis, I would do it if I was the Spurs, just because you have a chance to develop really once-in-a-generation type front line there. And I think that will make them the favorite to win the NBA title next year, quite frankly. And we know the Spurs are loaded with assets to keep, even with everything they'll have to give up for Giannis. If they do keep the pick and end up selecting number 2, I think it'll be Dylan Harper. I think he exists in a class of his own as a number 2 pick this year. Excited to see what he can develop into. Obviously, the son of the 5-time NBA champion, Ron Harper. But again, think about him developing on the Bucks. Obviously, he'll get to learn from Dame when Dame returns from his Achilles injury. But he'll be a foundational piece there. And we'll see what they do. If he develops with the Spurs, I mean, they already got plenty of guards. They got the reigning Rookie of the Year, as I mentioned, in Steven Castle. They got Devin Vassell. I don't know if they're going to end up keeping Chris Paul, but Chris Paul, De'Aaron Fox is obviously the franchise point guard there. And I think Dylan Harper is best with the ball in his hands. So we'll have to see. I think it's shaping up for that number 2 pick to be traded and get Wemby and Fox the help that they need. And like I said, if it's for a player with the caliber of Giannis, I don't think you can discount the Spurs permitting help as the number 1 title contender coming into next year. Moving on, finally, the number 3 pick we're going to talk about. The Philadelphia 76ers end up lucking into that number 3 pick. You know, a couple players could go there. Like I said, Dylan Harper is in a class of his own. So below him, I think there's an echelon of players who still have all-star potential, but are not on that level of the first 2 picks, Flagg and Harper. Philly obviously dealt with a lot of injuries and a lot of bad decisions. Obviously, you got Paul George's contract on the books. Tyrese Maxey was hurt. Jared McCain was hurt. Joel Embiid was hurt. All of these guys were out for the season. That ultimately led to the emergence of Quentin Grimes, who, you know, hopefully they can end up keeping, but if not, he can go to a team and, you know, continue to showcase the bag work that he showed with all of those stars out, even though, you know, Philly was getting their ass whooped. But number 3 pick for Philly, obviously, if they keep Joel Embiid, you're trying to win around that core of George, Embiid, and Maxey. So I would, you know, I could see them trading as well to get some veteran help. And then as we go forward, I could see them keeping the pick and picking somebody like Ace Bailey. He can learn from Paul George. Similar builds, similar games to each other. I was about to say again, y'all. I'm trying to stop. But you also have VJ Edgecombe, guard from Baylor, that can go there, as well as Trey Johnson. Con Canopal, hope I'm saying his name right, from Duke. Multitude of players can go there, but I think Philly should go the veteran route, see what they can do on the trade market. Number 3 pick obviously is going to have a lot of value. Don't know if it's going to be enough for Giannis. And obviously the Spurs have a better package with number 2, and in my opinion, a player that exists in another 2 from the players that can be picked at number 3. But we'll see. Philly fans, Spurs fans, Mavs fans, y'all get in the comments. Let me know what y'all think that those teams should do with those picks. What y'all think about the rest of the lottery. How y'all felt about the draft. Was it rigged? Is it rigged? And we can continue to go forward from there with our last topic of the day. We're gonna holler about the remaining teams in the playoffs. So you got the Western Conference, you got Minnesota at OKC, and then you got the Eastern Conference, you got the New York Knicks at Indiana Pacers. Now we're gonna talk about what a title would mean for each of those stars and ultimately those franchises. So obviously I'm a Minnesota Timberwolves fan. So let's start off with Ant. It would mean a lot for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obviously, our first championship. For me, it'll vault them to number 1 in franchise history as far as player status, over Kevin Garnett, over Kevin Love, and a few others. Zach LaVine, Minnesota legends. But it's going to be tough. They're facing the Oklahoma City Thunder, who, in my opinion, are the best team left in the playoffs. All these teams are good and talented, though. But Ants, obviously, they're trying to anoint them as the next Jordan. This would be a big step up to that mantle, because out of all the teams, I would probably say Minnesota probably has the 3rd best odds as far as everybody thinking to win a championship. So, obviously, we got Jaden McDaniels, we got Nickeil Alexander-Walker on the wings to help guard Shea. Julius Randle has taken a step, in my opinion, in these playoffs. He's proven to be a good player, and I doubted him a lot when New York made that trade. More about that later on. But it would mean a lot for Minnesota for Ant bringing the city their first championship and setting him up for future success. As you know, he already got that bag. We got a couple players on big contracts and surrounding him with more talent. But as of right now, I think that'll vault him into being a top 5 player in the NBA. You got to look at who win the chip, and it's ultimately going to be up to him playing like an MVP level player. Because I think Ant right now, and this could be biased, I personally think he's the best player in the playoffs left right now. Individual talent, I think he's the best talent and best overall player as far as playmaking, scoring, and defense left in these playoffs. And I think he has a chance to prove to the rest of the world that he is that and show why he's the best player in Minnesota history if he brings this championship home. And I hope he does. Shout out Mini Game. Next, we'll talk about SGA, the opponent in the playoffs. Thunder, in my opinion, has the best overall team left in the playoffs. I think it was lame for the NBA not to announce the MVP during the Nuggets and Thunder series. But we'll see how that plays out, man. I think SGA is ultimately going to win, even though I think Jokic is the rightful MVP. I've said that in past videos. Y'all can go look up and go find me saying that and explaining why. Obviously, Jokic is the best player in the world, but I think Shea is right there. Obviously does a great job in the mid-range area, getting to the free throw line, getting to the cup, assisting his teammates. Great team. Jalen Williams. You got Alex Caruso, who's been playing good these playoffs. Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein. They got a great squad, a great bench as well. Lou Dort. They got a great squad, so it's going to be tough for Minnesota. This is going to be about spacing in this series, in my opinion. Not great three-point shooting teams, which is going to lead to, in my opinion, a treat of old-school basketball. Obviously, for SGA to win this title, it would be the first one, which, you know, would set him up down a good path. It looks like the Thunder are set to dominate for the next decade, overflowing with young talent already, and we know they have a cachet of draft capital to keep adding premier talent to a team that won 68 games this year, only lost 14 games this year. Just won 7 games. Going to have a tough test against the Timberwolves, but I think for Shea, again, bringing home Oklahoma City the first championship, I think that'll vault him to, if not number 1, he's already up there with Russ and KD for being the best player in Oklahoma City history. I mean, with an MVP, he would match Russ and KD for one MVP. Obviously, they're going to lead him in points because they were there for a while. He's been there for a while now, too. I think a championship puts SGA at number 1. For me personally, I think they put him at number 1. Thunder fans, get in the comments. Let me know, am I tripping? Obviously, you got GP, Ray Allen, Sean Kemp, who were there, as well as KD and Russ. But let me know, am I tripping on that take? Will this take SGA to number 1? And Timberwolves fan, let me know if Ant is over KG if he brings home the chip as well. Next, we'll talk about Tyrese Halliburton, who was voted on The Athletic by his peers, by fellow NBA players, as the most overrated player in the NBA. Now, I got to be honest, we know the Pacers been beating up on some injured teams, and that's kind of been a theme the past couple of years, although Ty Halliburton has really showed up in this playoff with his playmaking especially, but he's also been scoring the basketball. I know he had a couple duds. I think he had a 4-point outing in these playoffs, but regardless, the Pacers are breezing through everybody. They look like a buzzsaw. Obviously, they play with the best pace in the NBA. And they're locking up on the defensive end as well. The role players are really stepping up. Andrew Nembhard has been playing really well, played really well in that Cavs series. Miles Turner, he's doing his thing, blocking shots, spacing the floor for his teammates. I like Benedict Mathurin coming off the bench. He's a strong scorer, 6-man off that bench. And they just have a solid team overall. So I could see them being a tough challenge, but for Tyrese Halliburton, this will be vindication of everybody voted you to be the most overrated player, but you're leading your team to an NBA championship potentially. And I just think that's the ultimate fuck you. That's the ultimate middle finger, and I love to see that from an underdog's perspective. And then finally, the last topic we're going to talk about tonight is the New York Knicks and Jalen Brunson. If the New York Knicks to win the championship, man, New York Knicks fans will be talking so much shit. I know y'all saw that clip where the New York Knicks fans threw a bag of trash on top of the poor opposing fan. I don't know if it was a Pacer fan, like this was last year, or it was a Celtics fan, but I'm going to say it was a Pacer fan because I don't think a Celtics fan going for that, with respect. Threw a bag of trash on that boy. The Knicks is the only team who have won a championship left in the playoffs, but that was 52 years ago, long before I was born, and a lot of people that's watching my content was born. But we love our old viewers and our old heads and our mature and seasoned viewers. Let me not even say old. Our mature and seasoned viewers, we love y'all too, man, for sure. And I'm damn near, I'm unk too, so it is what it is. But Jalen Brunson, he's been, in my opinion, the best player in these playoffs, leading the Knicks to victories. You know, I'm not discounting just because Jason Tatum got hurt, because in those first 3 games, in the third game, which he got hurt, they came back and he was on the floor. So I'm not discrediting that. I think Brunson is the engine for the Knicks. They don't have a deep bench, and if they did, we wouldn't know because they ain't getting that much PT outside of Deuce McBride and Mitchell Robinson, who I think has really played well in these playoffs. Obviously, I'm a Minnesota fan, so I got a lot of love for Cat, man. It'd be great to see him get a championship after being traded from Minnesota. It was a trade that I didn't like. But ultimately, I want y'all to go back and check these clips. And if not, I'll show the clips. I might include it at the end of this video. I predicted the Knicks to win the NBA championship. So I'm not going to go away from my pick. Of course, I want Minnesota to win, but I predicted the Knicks to win the NBA championship this year. Jalen Brunson, he's in the older bracket for these young stars that we're talking about, but he's still a young man. And obviously the Knicks, they didn't trade 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges for them not to have this level of success as far as making the conference finals, getting to the NBA finals, and ultimately winning the championship. That's what they put this team together for.